Before the video begins, this is a part 1 for the first 3 episodes of Sir Pelo's Spooky Month series, but will also contain minor references to episodes 4 and 5. I've left links to all the videos in the description, which I highly recommend watching before viewing this video. The Spooky Month narrative is one of the most interesting examples of creating a show with hidden lore in it. Created by Sir Pelo, the Spooky Month series is an animated series released around October, or Spooky Month as he would call it. It features 2 characters, Skid and Pump, as they go around causing mayhem and generally acting very chaotic. But underneath this comedic and well-animated series are implications of kidnapping, assault, eldritch horrors, cults, and drug rings. The series sort of went from a funny short animated series to a genuinely interesting narrative that reveals itself the deeper you look. It's a great blend between comedy and horror, and so I've compiled what I think is a good documentation of the entire timeline of the Spooky Month series, from the first episode all the way to the 5th one. The first episode that plays out is much more similar to Sir Pelo's crazier videos. It has the basis of what the rest of the show will be like, but hasn't yet got a good hold on its atmosphere and narrative, although it's still pretty funny.
Grandma, it's a Pokemon! It's a Pokemon!
I do think this episode is focused primarily on comedy rather than horror and comedy. It starts off with one of the characters, named Skid, creepily looking at his alarm clock which reads October 1st. He then calls his friend, named Pump. Pump then sends a spooky dance meme along with a jump scare of the Ooga Booga woman. Keep these characters in mind. The next scene shows Skid's mother, named Lila, being held hostage by a serial killer, named Bob Velsib. Lila then distracts Bob with a piece of candy before Skid visits his grandma, who has probably seen better days. Then a guy named Frank rides his van towards them and offers them free candy, with obvious malicious intentions. He then kidnaps a child. They then go to see a horror movie, and the Ooga Booga woman seems to be doing really well for herself, appearing to have a successful acting career. They visit a graveyard, summon a demon using a Ouija board named Moloch, and then play a horror game featuring the Ooga Booga woman again, who appears to have made a cameo in the Luigi's Mansion game. Anyway, they then go downstairs only for them to realize it's November. Either this is a jump cut or the alarm set at the start was a mistake. Now keep all these characters in mind as each of them do in fact play important roles in future episodes. Before we continue to the next episode, let's analyze some of the more interesting details. Near the beginning, we can actually see a photo of Skid and Pump together with glowing eyes of a figure in the background. If you watch the Spooky Month videos, like I told you to, you would know that this figure is actually a part of the cult that appears in the series. The cult are a primary antagonist that are responsible for a lot of the horrible events that occur within the town Skid and Pump live in. This is the first depiction we see of them, foreshadowing future episodes. The demon they summon is also named Moloch. Moloch also shares the same name of a god mentioned in the book of Leviticus. The Bible actually disapproves of Moloch since he's associated with child sacrifice. A common event that occurs within the town of the Spooky Month series is related to child kidnappings. Very weird when you consider both are related to each other in some way. The mannequin in the background also moves slightly and appears in later episodes to show other signs of sentience, implying it may be possessed. What's interesting, however, is if we go to the description, we read the following text. Skid and Pumpy have an adventure the entire Spooky Month, along with a link of the Newgrounds version of the video titled Real Ending. It shows Moloch in the attic coming to the realization that it's actually November and not Spooky Month before getting beaten up by Santa Claus. I hope you kept every character in mind, because the next Spooky Month episode is a significant improvement story-wise. Characters have their own voice acting.
Yeah, we can get out after we get the...
Animation is significantly more polished, hidden details have a bigger impact on the story, and the soundtrack is amazing and fits the animation really well. We see 2 thieves named Fat Thief and Thin Thief. They get caught by Skid, only for Skid to naively say,
I know, cause it is a Pokemon!
It's a spooky month!
and then leave. Lila ends up catching both of them before Thin Thief does a Spooky Month dance. Moloch then asks to be released, only for Skid to run away. Pump arrives and the both of them knock on Frank's van for ice cream. They eat the ice cream, disappear, and then another kid who arrives eats his own ice cream. He then gets kidnapped after falling unconscious. Skid and Pump proceed to visit a clown named Mr. Clown for a joke. He then laughs maniacally before the two kids laugh and disappear. Another kid comes up and asks for a joke and then also gets kidnapped. Skid and Pump break into Pump's house, entering through the window of his sister named Susie. They mess around on her computer before Skid says,
Let's get the hell out of here!
and proceed to steal her diorama of hell. They visit Pump's grandpa named Mr. Wonder, informing him that it's Spooky Month. He proceeds to have a heart attack, does the Spooky Month dance, and breaks all of his bones. They end up encountering the Hats gang, yes, that's actually what they're called, and end up getting bullied. They're named Russ, Roy, and Robert. Roy informs them about a haunted house on a hill that they should visit for Spooky Month before saying,
That's where my uncle takes me.
More on this line in the analysis segment. They then get cornered in by this creepy dude who is implied to be some sort of, you can fill in the gaps. They then get transported into an alternate realm where the eyes of the universe offers to show them, well, the end of the universe. Pump's eyes then turn into a blue shade with him being visibly traumatized. The eyes of the universe is told about Spooky Month and runs out of the mansion, kills the uncle, and traumatizes the Hats gang. Afterwards, they go to the candy store and greet Kevin, a person who hates his job, and are offered 3 pieces of candy. The eyes of the universe leaves one last message before returning.
Always look at the stars.
Thin Thief and Fat Thief are arrested by Officer Jack and John. Lila comes out and the 3 celebrate with a Spooky Month dance, along with the eyes of the universe. This episode gives characters a bit more depth, the narrative is more clear although a bit dark, and the voice acting and soundtrack are implemented very well. But let's analyze this episode on a deeper level. We see a picture of Lila graduating, meaning she most likely has either completed high school or has a higher form of education. When Skid goes into his backyard, we see a tombstone with the words Grandma written on it, implying that she died. When Frank gives an ice cream to Skid and Pump, the ice cream is not poisoned, but when he gives it to another kid, that ice cream is poisoned. It's not clear whether Frank is avoiding kidnapping Skid and Pump because he actually respects them, or if it's because they're annoying. The scene with the clown has lost posters of a bunch of other YouTubers that you may have recognized, such as Circle Tunes, Noodle, Cas Van de Pol, and many more. But if you look on the right side, you actually get a photo of a fictional character titled This Man. Basically, he was an urban legend who, according to the legend, would appear in people's dreams. Not really sure what this implies, but it might just be an Easter egg. The poster in Susie's room foreshadows the event about to take place in this episode. If we look at the photo inside of Pump's house, we can actually see a photo of him, Susie, his grandpa, and what appear to be his parents standing next to him. When Skid and Pump open the door, Mr. Clown can actually be seen stalking them in the background. The line, "That's where my uncle takes me," implies that Roy has been sexually abused, with him in a later segment saying,
What do you mean it's wrong?
Everything is fast-paced and crazy, so this could be seen as a joke, which it is, but it also implies that Roy doesn't actually understand that his uncle's actions are severely immoral and flat-out illegal. Skid and Pump may just be wacky cartoon characters, but their ability to identify that there is significant danger when encountering Roy's creepy uncle shows that they are quite intelligent. There's a cool-looking cult symbol seen here. I'm not really sure what it represents, but it most likely is a depiction of the eyes of the universe. When Skid and Pump are being held by the eyes of the universe, Skid seems quite unfazed, perhaps not understanding what the eyes of the universe is trying to show him, whilst Pump seems visibly scarred. What's interesting is that for the rest of the series, Pump's eyes will occasionally show a shade of blue, most commonly when he's facing a demon. When the eyes of the universe is speaking to Skid and Pump, he is shown to have 8 tentacles, just like the cult symbol. During this scene, if you pay close attention to the background, you can actually see one of the stars wink, implying that the eyes of the universe are on good terms with Skid and Pump. We also see the stars at the end of the credits scene. The description of the video reads, "Happy Spooky Before Christmas," with another link titled Real Ending, similar to the one we saw in the first video. In this scene, officers John and Jack are driving in the car, only for John to notice the tentacles coming out of the house. He then says that weird things are happening in this town, only for Jack and Fat Thief to start doing the Spooky Month dance and then running over the Ooga Booga woman in a beautifully animated sequence. Spooky Month 3 Unwanted Guests now has a full grasp on the style of the series, as well as better use of soundtrack and voice talent. The story also appears to be more structured and contains many more little details that when pieced together also reveal a larger narrative. So let's get into the video. Lila is seen doing several things around the house, such as cooking, watching TV, and working, only to be distracted by a loud banging noise. She then finally has enough after being woken up in the middle of the night by Moloch, and assumes the sound being made is a rat. She decides to call an exterminator using a Yellow Pages book, containing a QR code, but more on that later, and rings up the number. Skid walks in and informs Lila that the rat is actually his friend, before leaving to cause a bunch of chaos. His friend Pump visits him from a grave, and the two proceed to go to the mall, only to be interrupted by Frank, who offers them a ride. Upon entering, the two find a kidnapped victim, and so Frank gives them a special bottle that puts the kidnapped victim to sleep. Later we cut back to Lila as she is speaking to the exterminator named Dexter. Dexter then goes inside, and we cut back to Skid and Pump entering the toy aisle of the mall. The two buy a Happy Fellas toy from a guy named Rick, who then informs the two that it's actually June and not in fact Spooky Month. Skid and Pump ignore this, buy the doll, and proceed to leave. They find a candy dealer who asks them to send a pack of sugar to the store. Skid and Pump momentarily die, and the scene cuts to the attic. Holy shit. Those are the robes associated with the cult. The mannequin is there along with a box that says "Remember Lila" and a photograph of the family along with a figure whose face is marked out. Dexter then gets brutally attacked by Moloch after setting a trap. Skid and Pump wake up in the hospital alongside the Ooga Booga woman. They visit a mortuary and explain to the worker that it's Spooky Month, to which all the corpses respond by waking up and proceeding to dance. The worker explains to them that it's June before the corpses fall, and Skid and Pump go to visit the candy store. They get heckled by Roy, but both his friends seem scarred, remembering the events of the previous episode. Roy then notices the toy, and the scene ends with him giving a malicious gesture. Lila gets attacked by Dexter, who is possessed by Moloch, and the scene cuts to Kevin waiting in the candy store. It seems that Roy got the Happy Fellas doll and proceeded to dress Skid and Pump up in the materials from the toy. Kevin offers them free chocolate, and the two leave the sugar on the counter. Kevin panics, and officers John and Jack enter. John and Jack are talking about an event in which Jack shot someone, before Kevin makes this remark.
Wow, a cop shooting someone. What a surprise.
The two officers become annoyed at the statement, and John offers to taste the sugar. Turns out the sugar is actually sugar, and they leave the store satisfied. And then he gets ambushed by a drug cartel who takes the sugar. I'm so confused. Lila gets attacked by Moloch before Skid and Pump come in. Pump doesn't believe that the demon is Moloch and asks him to twist his head, causing him to break his neck and die. The scene cuts to all of them sitting on the couch along with the Happy Fellas doll. Skid wants to know if it's actually Spooky Month, and Lila tells them it is. Then one of the characters on the television begins to dance. The video ends and cue Ooga Booga jump scare. In terms of hidden details, there is significantly more we can interpret that helps us understand the narrative. When Lila is working, we see a note on a board that reads, "Tell creator to finish the damn animation on time," implying that her job may be somewhat associated with the digital media industry. We also see a book Lila is reading that will continue to resurface throughout the entire series, called The Great Man by Simon. I'm not exactly too sure what it means, but doing some research, I was only able to find a book by the name written by Kate Christensen, which doesn't seem to be related to the law in any way. These two books probably have no relation to each other, but I thought I should point it out, especially since it appears in quite a lot of later episodes. We can also see the mannequin from the attic appear in a reflection of the mirror. When we move up The mannequin is in the same position, only without the arms. We can even see it move slightly. When Lila is searching through the yellow pages, we can access the QR code, which takes us onto this page. We see several adverts, such as a Mr. Clown advert, a candy advert for Candy Club, a candy advert for drugs, some other phone numbers with messages written on them, a Happy Fellas advert, and a Dexter the Exterminator advert. What I notice about Dexter the Exterminator is his catchphrase, rats, bats, and wasps, changes to rats, bats, and cats. If we also remember the scene where he talks about fulfilling his urges, we can probably come to the conclusion that he enjoys his job a little too much and is starting to develop sadistic urges. We also see an advert that reads, "Lost your son? I probably have him, lol," which is a clear indicator that Frank may have started kidnapping children as a means of collecting ransom money. We see a police advert that states, "The police service is in all the pages for your own safety and time." Perhaps this means that the events going on in the town are quite severe, but the area of the yellow pages that we are most interested in is the bottom right corner. I've attempted to piece together the torn out message to the best of my ability. I bought one to remember my son, and his soul is trapped on it. Now a doll is haunting me. Please do not buy the Happy Fella. By the way, I repair stuff, just call this number, followed by a number below. The advert is interesting since it not only foreshadows the next episode in which Dexter gets trapped in a Happy Fella's doll, but implies that many people in the town are experiencing instances in which a soul will possess the Happy Fella's doll only to become hostile. This is most likely affiliated with a cult. In the next advert, we see an image promoting the cult. We know this because if we look closely and apply contrast, we can see the symbols of the cult begin to take shape. The phrase at the top of the poster can be put into Google Translate, and translated from Latin, it reads the following: "We are everything and everyone. Everyone is going to give us more than everything." This sort of sums up the cult's goal, which is to influence everyone to give them everything of value. The cult thus wants to have power. Since this is Lila's phone book, it's kind of weird that she has the corner of the page ripped out. Did she rip it out herself because of distaste towards the cult? Either way, we have to dig a bit further. When Dexter is talking to Lila, we see an eyeball attached to his back. This could just be a keychain, but may also be a collected relic from an animal that he killed. During several scenes, we can actually see two distinct stars. This is a throwback to when the eyes of the universe told the kids that it would watch over the both of them. Now for the attic scene. Looking at the shelf on the right, we see the robes associated with the cult, along with several family photographs with a figure having been crossed out twice. This is most certainly Skid's father and Lila's husband. One of the frames reads, "You are everything," and on one of the boxes at the bottom of the shelf, it has Lila's name written on it, and what appears to be the husband's name crossed out. But we do also see the words "Remember Lila" written on a box. To this day, I still cannot interpret what these words mean. It could imply that Lila has been told to remember the cult or remember her husband, but the term remains ambiguous to me. We also see the amulet associated with the cult on the right side of the uniform, but the creepiest placement has to be the mannequin close by the shelf. Now, something that I noticed is that the mannequin's shadow can be seen watching Lila in one of the scenes. My theory is that the mannequin is perhaps possessed by Lila's former husband and that he watches his family to ensure that they are protected. There are several theories I have as to how the father managed to possess the mannequin. Perhaps he was forced to by the cult, or did it voluntarily to escape the cult and still watch over his family. Another question that arose is, what is the relationship between Lila and her former husband? Was Lila part of the cult as well, or did she find out her husband was a part of the cult, thus sending the relationship they had into turmoil? We also see a large cocoon in one of the corner areas of the attic. The morgue scene with Patty is also quite interesting, as in the credits sequence we see the sentence, "Patty, forensic pathologist," who is voiced by Abigail Adair. A forensic pathologist is a person who determines the cause of death and is specifically related to court proceedings involving crime, being responsible for providing evidence for how a death was caused, etc. Another interesting thing is that the characters keep reminding Skid and Pump that it's not actually Halloween, which seems to be common throughout episodes. In the scene where Lila is looking for Dexter, we see a photo frame that depicts the exact scene play out. Another interesting interaction is seeing Kevin reluctantly give out two pieces of candy to Skid and Pump, showing that his attitude towards them has changed. But one of the more vague details involves Pump's eyes. Ever since his encounter with the eyes of the universe, Pump's eyes actually turn into a shade of blue when in the presence of a demon. Why Skid's eyes don't do the same, I'm not too sure, but it could have something to do with him not understanding the vision he was given. Interestingly enough, Pump can identify the demon while Skid cannot, either implying that his demon eyes help Pump to see demons more easily, or he's just more smarter than Skid is. The description of the video reads as follows: someone got tired and wants to go outside, but it's not the kids, along with a link once again titled Real Ending. Now it's in this scene that we actually see the cult for the first time, as well as hear the first uncensored swear word, so we know things have gotten serious. In this scene, John and Jack are investigating the house on the hill and see the cult members gathered around Mr. Clown. He then states the cult's message, which is the actual interpretation of the one I translated.
We will take all and get everything. Everything will give us more than is all!
This message might imply that once the cult gains material power over everyone, they can surpass the meaning of everything by being in full control of the world. Jack then shoots the clown dead and he ends up dying since he's not wearing the necklace, which we know from future episodes grants immortality. Going back to the attic scene, we can then deduct that since the necklace has not been worn by Lila's husband, he perhaps ended up dying. We can also conclude that the event takes place right before they visit the candy store, since John attempts to calm down Jack after briefly entering. It's a bit unclear why John doesn't shut down the entire cult, but I have my reasons. First, Jack just shot a person who seemingly hasn't been caught doing anything wrong. This means they could actually get into serious trouble for shooting an unarmed person for no reason. Second, it's not like John and Jack can shoot the entire members of the cult, as this may result in other members of the cult taking more precautionary measures to avoid being caught. And finally, John may have avoided killing them in order to more securely build a case against the cult and gather evidence as a way of stopping them legally. Using these three reasons, John's decision becomes much more logical. Now, it goes without saying that this series is amazing, not only for the animation, story, and voice talent, but because the creator, Sir Pelo, manages to create a decent following for the series that brings people together every year to dissect, analyze, and enjoy the episode. Oh, he also puts his video under a Creative Commons license and gives people permission to use his content under fair use, which honestly makes me have a huge amount of respect for him. Seriously, what a legend. I recommend checking out all his videos, which I put in the link of the description, because the animation delivers amazing content that cannot simply be enjoyed through a simple analysis video. Now, altogether, the 3 videos resulted in about over 20 minutes of content, so this is going to be a part 1. The next 2 episodes actually have an accumulated 40 minutes of content and will require much more dissection and viewing than the first 3. So with that, I hope you stay tuned for my part 2 analysis video, and happy very, very late Halloween.